Howdy. How y'all doing? This is Nick Wallace. Nick is a chef at the Art Museum, as you've heard, and he is also an entrepreneur here and a principal in Soul City Hospitality.
And Dave Watkins, Jr., excellent guy. Project manager for our new food hub that we got coming, but we'll talk about that.
So we are working on a couple of projects. One is a new farm-to-table restaurant called Lunette.
Mm-hmm. Great restaurant, French techniques, all local ingredients as much as we can get, and a great old courthouse downtown on the corner of Capitol and West Street. You guys know about the James Eastland Courthouse right there on the corner. It used to be a ugly gray building. It's not anymore. Every day I walk in there, I see all the construction going on, so can't wait until grand opening.
And we're also working on a food hub. And we'll tell you a little bit more about what that is in just a minute, but basically we're putting together the infrastructure for a local food system here in Mississippi.
Yeah, but break that down. Like, what does that mean for Mississippi?
Well, we don't have a local food system to speak of right now. I know we are #1 in agriculture. Well, no, agriculture is our biggest business here. Mm-hmm. Employs 23% of the people in the state, the workforce. But nonetheless, we have a big gap in terms of growing what we eat here. We produce about $750 million, or I guess we import about $750 million of fruits and vegetables every year.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we eat, and we grow about $200 million worth of that. Mm-hmm. So we have an import deficit of over $500 million in the fruits and vegetables that we are eating here. Mm-hmm. So it's a problem. It's a challenge, and it's something, part of what we're taking on.
Yeah, and the problem is, I think we just forgot about our roots. So
yeah,
you know,
we've gotten away from a lot of what we do. Now Nick knows a lot about this because Nick grew up on a farm.
Grew up in Edwards, Mississippi. We got about 20 acres total. We grew vegetable crops on about 2 acres. We slabbed our own hogs out there in one little dirt field that's pretty close to our pond. And also too, we have a chicken coop. 2 of my favorite best friends is coming up. It was named Squirrel and Peanut. Yeah, it was actually Squirrel and Peanut. And I was telling David about my 2 chickens is because, when squirrel season, the squirrels just go crazy. We got trees, that's over our chicken pen. This pullet chicken was just going crazy. I didn't know, so I thought it was like a perfect fit, and I'm 8 years old too. I was into that. And peanut, we harvest peanuts out there in Edwards, Mississippi as well. And this chicken just loves peanut shells for some odd reason. So that was Peanut. Peanut did not go on nobody's plate, just want you to know. I'm into the big farm-to-table thing, but no, you're not killing my pets. So, just let you know.
What was it like on a daily basis on the farm? What do you do in the morning?
Waking up in the morning, we didn't have alarm clocks. Wake up in the morning, grandmother's in the kitchen, which is Linnell Donald. She's waking up, who knows what time. But, I wake up because I'm smelling the batters and the blueberry jam and the bacon, and I'm getting hungry. It's time for my day to start. So I get up. And I'm noticing all the flour that's on the kitchen floors and all. It's nothing but action, in my grandmother's kitchen. I guess that's what placed it in my heart, but that started all our days up. My grandfather was in the logging business. He's out getting all the hand trucks ready for logging. But where I'm at, I'm in that kitchen because I'm slapping off, some jam on biscuits and that kind of thing before anybody can touch it.
Now, what did you guys do in the morning after you ate breakfast, before you left?
We had to huddle up. We had to check our calendars. We all had daily calendars that my grandmother, talked about the harvesting. We talked about the planting of seeds. Had 2 uncles, Tommy and Frank, which was pretty awesome with that. We stuck to our roots. My grandmother has this great recipe, and nobody's going to steal it. It's pretty hard to make. I tried to make it a couple times, just didn't work out. But we used to grow Mississippi sweet onions, and she dehydrates the skin. So, after we get done from our 10, 12-hour day work, we'd come home. My grandmother had whipped up some ranch, and we got these little onion chips. It was quite amazing. I haven't seen that on nobody's menu before, especially made from scratch. Just wanted to let you know.
So one of the things that Nick has told me before is that everybody from the community, you had about 20 acres over there themselves that they were growing on, and that they had, and half the family had about 10 acres, and they're growing produce on about 2 acres, right? So they actually had a whole community, and everybody's growing a little bit for each other. You guys are growing squash,
eggplant. The lady down the street, which was Barbara, she did all the growing of like the turnip greens, so we wouldn't compete with her. But my grandfather always had this community kind of atmosphere. We was on just a quarter-mile roads. He had a dead end, so we created a community. We didn't ever have to go into town because of all the authority. So we shared. You didn't have to run off to the grocery store for anything. We did it all there.
So like 5 other houses in the community?
Yeah, a total of 6 with my grandmother, but yeah, it was 5 other ones.
Okay, but you guys would talk about who's going to grow what, right?
Absolutely.
You coordinated, so not everybody is growing squash at the same time, right?
They had to come to our house for all the yummy, animals. We slaughtered our own animals, so sometimes on the weekend we actually roast whole pigs and that kind of thing. So our community for our corner house was central location, so people came there to meet up. So we had meetings there to talk about anything that was going on, just like you do in regular neighborhoods now, but we was actually growing our food.
So, okay, so you have Nana, who's like the CEO of the farm, and she gets everybody in there right after breakfast and says, all right, let's walk through the living room, everybody look at the calendar, because you got the calendars on the wall. It's got the work plan on there. All right, so we're going to have a corporate office meeting right here on the farm. And everybody's going to know what they're doing.
It's sleek. It's real nice. Better than Marriott's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody knows exactly what they're doing. They got their work plan. They're going out, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And everybody in the neighborhood is growing on a coordinated effort. You're coordinating based on the demand that you know that you're going to need, right? And then when you bring the product in, you're talking a little bit about, separating some product, looking at what...
Yeah, she did all the sorting, and we had a lot of product that comes in that was maybe broken. It was something damaged about it. It might have been a worm that was going in it. So, that got used for the animals. So it was no product that did not go to waste. And if it was some that we wanted to jar and make a jam or spread or butter or something out of, we had plenty of jars. So we did a lot of canning in the house.
Okay.
So it was just like a production line. We had a complete production line. And so it's kind of easy, traveling the world now and seeing a lot of these, these farming aspects of these hubbing and all, and you see this. So, me and this guy met up, and we're actually going to make it happen very soon.
But so now, right now, you serve how many meals a week?
About 5,000. It's a lot.
It's been serving 5,000 meals a week. All right. Now, how did you learn how to do that?
It was all about structure, just like my grandmother, She only had about 12 people she had to feed on a daily basis, but, it was all about structure and coordination, and that's what I use to this day in the kitchen now, and that's why I started off with Marriott. I was a corporate chef when I was 24 years old, and when I got in...
I'm sorry, what was that? You were a corporate chef when you were 24 years old?
I was a corporate chef at Marriott when I was 24 years old.
How many, what does that mean, a corporate chef? How many restaurants are you overseeing?
67.
Wait, you're overseeing 67 restaurants when you're 24 years old?
24 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, my nana always said, no job is too big. It's just not. No job is too big.
Well, now, how did you manage those folk that you had to manage? I'm sure, maybe some of those people were a little younger, maybe a little whiter, Yeah,
it was, good joke. It was all about people placement, You had Reggie that was great at searing steaks, that Tom was great at tossing salads, or making the dressings and all. So it was all about just getting in and knowing who you're dealing with, You had to bring, make a connection, we're big at, you know, things being family oriented in my kitchens, period. That's the way it has to be. And that's pretty much what I took, you know, as coming up into the Marriott world and also to the Hilton world. So I'm done with I'm done with the big corporations now. I want you to know, Jackson, Mississippi, and the state of Mississippi is actually my corporate office right now. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to make this thing happen.
That's right. So we talk about a lot farm to table. You hear that concept a lot. But what we're really hearing here is yard to stove, which is, this is how he grew up. This is how he learned how to run his businesses today.
Yeah, it's got to be yard to gas stove. Don't do electric.
Okay. Yard to gas stove, you know, okay. So this exists within a context within Mississippi, and it exists within the context of the United States and where we've come with farming and where we are right now. If you just look at our agriculture, yes, agriculture is a big business in Mississippi. But 1790, there were 4 million people in the United States. 90% of them lived on farms. Okay?
Big number.
90% of them lived on farms. By 1990, there were 260, roughly, million people in the United States. Less than 3 million of them lived on farms, lived and worked on farms. A lot of that change happened between 1940 and 1990. Between 1790 and 1890, we doubled our productivity. Between 1890 and 1940, in that 50-year period, we doubled our productivity. Between 1940 and 1990, our productivity increased by 20 times.
Yeah, and that number.
20 times.
Yeah, and that number from 1940, we had 300,000 farms. In 1990, went down to 30,000 farms.
43 now. I think
okay.
43,000, but 30,000 of
just
those
threw
farms.
that 13,000 in there.
Yeah. So huge drop off in the number of farms. One of the interesting things too is that in that same time period, 1940 to 1990, the population of Mississippi itself was growing at a rate of about 1/5 of the rest of the country. This is the time when we had a huge mechanization of our agricultural system. When you think about that, from 1940 to 1990, every 20 workers, you know, we now have one worker for every 20 on the farm. All right? So we went from what we were in 1790 with 4 million people in this country, now to 260, from 3 million people, 3.5 million people living and working on farms. About the same number of people working on farms today.
Yeah.
But instead of feeding 4 million, providing for 4 million, we're providing for, well, now it's over 300 million. This is the biggest change in the history of civilization, arguably, to date.
You know what the other biggest change is?
What's that?
What's that? Just not following your roots. Just a little brief story about Linnell Donald. My grandfather passed away about 13 years ago. A great man, John Donald, great business down in Edwards and Utica and all. Linnell Donald is still living to this day. We actually had a birthday party 2 weeks ago, celebrated down there in Edwards, Mississippi, and it was celebrated too. But I just want to tell you about just, getting away from your roots. It was one point in there that my grandmother, the money was coming in. The logging business was doing very successful. It was great. I don't know what triggered my grandmother to do this, but while my grandfather was out logging, my grandmother wanted to make it easy. She'd go into town and start buying these little baby pigs and all off a commercial truck. She didn't know anything about these pigs. She didn't know anything about these seeds. She didn't know anything about it, but she was buying it because she could. So she got away from her roots. Now, at that time, a year and a half later, my grandmother suffered with diabetes, high blood pressure. It was a big crisis in the family. My grandfather, put his foot down, put my uncles in charge of it. We got back to it 6 years later. My grandmother's 91 now. She don't suffer from diabetes. She don't suffer from high blood pressure. And we're still doing the same thing we was doing when I was 8 years old to this day, right now. We don't suffer with that in my family. So we just knew it, you know, and I just only wanted to share that with you because it's a great testimony, because we need to get back to our roots.
We do. We've gotten away from what we did, and a lot of the reason that we did that in the state is because of the mechanization of agriculture. A lot of it had to do with social oppression. A lot of people have left, but a lot of those people have stayed. And what we have are 66 out of our 82 counties in Mississippi are persistent poverty areas today. What we have is the #1 state ranking in hunger for the 6th year in a row.
Sure.
Ironically, #1 in obesity. So we've got hunger and obesity. It's a little bit of state schizophrenia right there. But while we are also #1 in hunger, we were #1, now we're #2 in unemployment. We have a huge problem with unemployment here. A lot of people who are idle. See, that's what happened with the mechanization. You know, it's created a lot of leisure time for us to do things like have TED Talks and have, you know, conversations like this. But one man's leisure is another man's unemployment and another man's suffering. And that's a lot of what we're looking at today. So we've got this problem of hunger, we've got this problem of unemployment, and we have 1.3 million acres of actual cropland
that we need to
on
use.
Farms that's not in production right now in Mississippi. Half of our all of our farmland is cropland, and then about a fourth of that, actually 24%, we are not farming on. It's uncultivated. We don't have the labor to do it. We don't have the people who are trained, who are out there living and working on those farms to do that work. But what we do know is where we're going. We know that as we look forward, over the next 50 years, and our population reaches 9 billion people, we will feed more people in that 50-year period than we have fed in the entire history of civilization to this point. Think about that for just a second. We'll feed more people in the next 50 years than we fed in the entire history of civilization to this point. That's 50% more people fighting for the same water supply that we not only have to drink with, but we also have to supply our crops and supply our animals that we live on. And also 50% more people fighting for the same land.
Sure.
We have perhaps a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here in Mississippi to get this right, to put that land in use, to train our people, to get them working, and that's what we're doing with our Food Hub initiative and our farm-to-table restaurant.
And if John Donald was still living to this day, you remember I told you that no job is too big. He would take on all that land. And,
all that land, all at one time.
All of it, yeah. But thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.